Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Today, the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee did a quite unusual press conference where they laid out evidence demonstrating that a pattern of corruption, a pattern of at least various pass-through money pass-throughs and money laundering devices, all encircling the wide net around the Biden family, incorporating many members of the Biden family. In fact, more than I think people knew existed. Rather than force you to watch an hour-long press conference and everything, we've kind of taken some of the clips to try to synopsize it for you. And then I'm going to tell you, because this is going to lay out the quid and the pro. It doesn't talk about the quo. What did these people get in return? And so what I'm going to lay out for, I'll talk to you a little bit afterwards to talk about the quo. But for the first few minutes here, let's look at what some of these members said. I'm going to start out with, I'll just be down the bottom screen here. I'm going to start out with the chairman of the committee, James Comer, and he kind of starts out and gives you the first punch on it.
Today, we'll talk about that progress. First, we want to discuss information the committee has learned since our last press conference in November. New information investigators have uncovered regarding the transfer of money from foreign entities to the Biden family. Many of the wire payments occurred while Joe Biden was vice president and leading the United States efforts in these countries. First instance, while Vice President Biden was lecturing Romania on anti-corruption policies, in reality, he was a walking billboard for his son and family to collect money. Hunter Biden and his associates capitalized on a lucrative financial relationship with a Romanian national who was under investigation for and later convicted of corruption in Romania. The Bidens received over $1 million for the deal. And 16 of the 17 payments to their associates' account that funneled the Biden's money occurred while Joe Biden was vice president. In fact, the money stops flowing from the Romanian national soon after Joe Biden leaves the vice presidency. This is a pattern of influence peddling. This appears separate from any payment Hunter received from his work connecting this individual to a U.S. law firm. We'll also provide further information regarding the Biden's relationship with China. This includes two individuals the committee is particularly concerned about. One of them, Xi Jinping, had close ties to the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party and operated a multi-billion-dollar energy company with access to large sums of money. We'll discuss how the Bidens received millions of dollars from this individual through the use of shell companies and wire transfers. In March, the committee released its first bank records memorandum that showed a Biden associate, Rob Walker, used his company to funnel money from the Chinese to various Biden family members. Democrats dismissed the evidence, even though it was based on bank records directly from the bank. The Democrats on the Oversight Committee received the same records as the Republicans, and they were able to verify the information. Democrats said all the bank records showed were Papa John's and Starbucks receipts. They deliberately chose to misconstrue and deny what was clearly in front of them. Hunter Biden's representatives claimed the money was, quote, good faith seed funds, but could not explain why those funds had to go through an intermediary in what appears to be an attempt to hide the transfers from the Chinese. They also couldn't explain why the Bidens received over $1 million in 16 different wire transfers over a period of 3 months to at least 5 different banks. The president, when confronted with this information, said it wasn't true. Instead of being honest with the American people, President Biden has claimed since the 2020 election that his family has not received money from China. That was a lie in 2020, and he continues to lie to the American people now. The Bidens have received millions of dollars from China. It is inconceivable that the president did not know it.
Yeah, there you go. That's James Comer leading it off and just kind of laying some of the bases here. And so now I'm going to go and we're going to switch it over and we're going to show you Representative Nancy Mace talking a little bit about what this means. Let's see, there she is.
This is what we know today. Money flowed from the Chinese Communist Party, aligned with individuals into American shell companies, and then that money was wired and transferred to Biden family members. This could be the most corrupt scheme in American politics, where a sitting vice president, where we saw members of his family, 9 members so far, there may be more, that were enriched from countries all over the world. And we're providing more information about Romania today. We know about China. We know that the president denied this during an election in 2020, continues to deny it to this day. And we want everyone held accountable if they have violated their oath of office. We shouldn't have folks that are in office that are betraying their oath of office. We shouldn't.
So Nancy Mace, pretty basic stuff. You know, it's massive. This corruption that's being unraveled is massive. The Biden crime family is beginning to be exposed as being little more than public traders off of their off of the money that is able to be generated based on who the father is, who Joe is. You know, one might ask, well, what did the Department of Justice, or were they involved in this? Were they just blind? Did they not know anything going on? Or what role did the Department of Justice play? Well, we've got Jim Jordan next talking a little bit about just that.
Suspicious activity reports. The key word in that phrase is the word suspicious. There are 170 of those reports, many of them put together by the Treasury Department of our government in the Obama-Biden administration. So 170 of those that the committee has reviewed, thousands of pages of bank records the committee has reviewed, and that has told us that there are now multiple, as Mr. Donalds just said, multiple LLCs receiving money from foreign entities and paying that money out to multiple members of the Biden family. And the fundamental question is the one Byron just raised. For what? What did they do? What was the business? What service did they provide? What value did they add? What did they do to warrant receipt of the money? That is the fundamental question, and no one seems to have an answer to that fundamental question.
Wow, yeah, that's a fundamental question indeed. I kind of mixed up the order because I think Byron Donalds, who actually spoke before Mr. Jordan, Chairman Jordan, but he makes a critical point here that I think people have to, that really is the question that coming away from this you have to ask, because what the committee's been able to do is they've been able to show that there's a massive transaction network that flows through and through the Biden family. And so the question then becomes, if there's a quid and there's pro, what's the quo? Well, the one thing we know is he's going to state very clearly, Mr. Donalds is going to state very clearly what the motivation was.
Having read those documents, one thing became pretty crystal clear, that there were many people who had serious questions about the transactions and about the velocity of these transactions, and they either get very, very deep into concealment, hiding money, shifting money, and for the purpose, we don't know, because one thing everybody in this room and the American people definitely know is that the Biden family doesn't really have a business. There is no business structure around this family except politics. And since Joe Biden has spent decades in the Senate, served 8 years as vice president, and is now president of the United States, and the family's getting money from various countries and foreign businesses through various shell companies and this web of LLCs. I mean, guys, you in the press.
Let's just be clear. I'm going to repeat the important thing that Mr. Donald said there in my mind. Donald Trump had businesses. He had businesses that you could point to. He had hotels, he had golf courses, he had wines, he had all sorts of businesses that were all over the world. those were things that you could say, okay, well, money flows, money goes, because it's going to a bunch of different businesses that actually are actual functioning businesses. The only thing the Biden family had, they didn't have a business. They had Joe Biden. They had the big guy. They didn't have nothing else to invest in. I could invest in Trump hotels, or stay at Trump hotels. And we saw for 4 years any activity at the Trump Hotel in DC, the left would go nuts and say, oh, there's all this money being transferred. Well, people are renting rooms in the Trump Hotel. That's not money transfer. That's called paying for a service received. The question is, what service did people receive from Joe Biden for the millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that Joe Biden and his family received from people around the world? I did not show you the information about Romanian, a guy who was later convicted of extortion, and paying a lot of money through, once again, a shell corporation to get to the Bidens. I didn't show you that. You can watch the C-SPAN report and get all the details of all these different things, or you can read the report. And we've got the memorandum here. And in Just the News, John Solomon has synopsized it pretty well. So if you go to justthenews.com, you get the synopsis. We'll also send these out on our email accounts to everybody who's an email subscriber. So if you're an email subscriber, go to dailytorch.com right now and subscribe, and you'll have these in your inbox tomorrow morning. But let's just be clear. What they had to sell was Joe Biden. They didn't have anything else to sell. They had to sell Joe Biden. Now, so people say, well, what did they get in return? What did Joe do for them? That's really hard to show. Okay. And here's the thing. The fact that Joe Biden received millions of dollars from Chinese entities, I think it's reasonable to ask, do the Chinese have a hold on Joe Biden because of those dollars? Not asking him to do anything per se, but having him in kind of a stranglehold, because if he goes off, let's just take a simple thing that we all know about. If he shoots down the Chinese balloon before it ever hits Alaska, and it doesn't take pictures of our nuclear facilities across the country, doesn't float around back and forth and do figure eight patterns over missile silos in Montana, if it doesn't sit there and go over early warning systems based in Anchorage, if it doesn't go then down to for a nice little visit down to our NORAD headquarters, and then proceed across the country looking at various nuclear disposal sites around the country and nuclear reactor sites around the country at Oak Ridge and then in South Carolina. If he shoots it down before it ever does that, Chinese get no information. We were lied to by the Biden administration, saying that the balloon was just floating along, when in fact we found out later it was actually running on tracks. It was controlled from afar, like a radio controlled car or a radio controlled drone, which is what it effectively was. We were lied about that. But one thing then was really mysterious. Once it got off the coast of South Carolina, we used a $500,000 missile to shoot it down, and creating an explosion. Why would you do that if you wanted to actually get the information out of that balloon? If you actually wanted to know what that balloon had done, and why would you want to do that? If you wanted to know exactly the technology on the balloon so you could block it in the future, why would you blow it up like that? Well, you wouldn't. That's the answer. They could have just went and taken the balloon and essentially netted it if they'd wanted to. But instead, they used a $500,000 missile to blow up this balloon. Because the fact is, we weren't able. We had to spend lots of time trying to reconstruct the tech and try to find it. But that wasn't in the Chinese interest for us to find an intact technology intact. So decisions get made. I can't tell you definitively that Joe Biden ordered the balloon to be blown up in such a way that it wasn't recoverable. I can just tell you that Joe Biden took money from China and his family took money from China. It wasn't in China's interest to actually have us be able to do anything about the balloon. And I can't tell you that Joe Biden was influenced by that, but I think a reasonable person would ask the question, was he? You see, that's the problem. When it's why for years and years and years, people went through, and people, well, just years now, people go through intensive background checks in order to work for the federal government. They go through intensive background checks in order to be able to get different security clearances. This isn't just because, gee, we want to make sure they aren't tied up with China in front, which, by the way, I don't think Joe Biden would have cleared those security clearances. It's because they want to find out if there are things that could be held over your head to force you, to entice you to become a spy. That's what they're trying to do. That's how they flip people for spies. Very rarely do they flip people because, gee, I want money. They flip people because they find something out about them that the person doesn't want to have out in the public domain. And then they go off and use that as a cudgel to entice those people to give some information and keep it quiet. Well, that's exactly what we have here, not just with China, but clearly, but also apparently with somebody in Romania, and who knows how many other countries involved through this just debacle, national security debacle. Bottom line is, Joe Biden's political career is coming to an end. The Democrats are abandoning him. We're about what we're going to see, and they're abandoning him because the American people have abandoned him. But what we're going to see for right now is basically a stonewall. This information comes out today. Tomorrow, we're going to have our southern border flooded with tens of thousands of people racing across the border because they've been told it's okay, essentially, by the Biden administration. So we're going to have the next week is going to be consumed. Next few days are going to be consumed with the simple thing. It's going to be consumed by the border, the border, the border. And it should be. But that means that this press conference, as well constructed as it was, will be sent to the wayside and say, because, and it won't, the mainstream media won't have to cover it. They won't have to look at the documents because by the nature of the way this is going to happen, it's going to get buried by the illegal immigration news. By the way, an illegal immigration news that would have been ignored, before. But now the media is going to cover it because they're going to cover that as opposed to covering this press conference and covering the information that's been brought out. We're going to have the memorandum. I've got it right here. Show you what it looks like. It's just a government document, so it's not anything too sneaky. But as a government document, it's just a straightforward, annotated press, memorandum, laying out a lot of these, a lot of the charges, a lot of the things that they've discovered. The challenge here, folks, is we have a president who, at the very least, has a strong appearance to be under the thrall of foreign powers who don't like us very much. And the Democrats created a whole Russia collusion scenario against Donald Trump and and talked about how serious it was and how dangerous it was. The fact is, right now, the evidence points pretty clearly that our current president of the United States for almost 10 years, has had FBI notifications, FBI reports being written up for suspicious activity, hundreds of them, directly because of these kind of things. Our FBI knew about it. Our FBI knows about it now. They had the Hunter Biden laptop in 2019. They did nothing. And the FBI, and so what's going to have to happen here is this isn't just about Joe Biden. The committees are going to have to go after the FBI and find out why they didn't use their investigative resources to find out the exact information that the House committee found in 4 months with some subpoenas. Why did the FBI bury this information that they had as far back as 2013, 2014? It's a great question. It's a question that needs to be asked. It's a question that we need to hold them accountable, because truth be told, is far more. What Joe Biden's doing is, it's really problematic, and it's hurt, and it's hard to overcome, but it can be overcome. But an FBI who's supposed to protect us from this kind of stuff, from this kind of espionage, that spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars of resources trying to entrap Donald Trump on something they knew was blatantly false, that then ignored information that was true about the Biden family and being under the financial control of the Chinese, and having the Chinese being able to hold that over their head and cause subtle changes in policy, subtle actions that would benefit the Chinese, or inactions that would benefit the Chinese. This is dangerous to its core, because if we can't trust the FBI to try to unearth this, and we have no protection whatsoever from foreign powers who seek to influence and seek to destroy our country, and yet Christopher Wray and the band of boobs at the FBI are either complicit or they are completely and totally inept. Neither is acceptable. Some tough news today. We'll make the memorandum available to you tomorrow through our email. So once again, if you're interested in the memorandum and reading it, sign up. Go to dailytorch.com, and in doing so, you will be able to get the memorandum tomorrow, as well as the Just the News story, synopsizing it. So we'll provide that to you tomorrow morning in your inbox. With that, I thank you very much for coming on board. I should take a comment or two. I will take a comment or two, because I really should do that. Betsy Burns. I can't believe Biden is asking people to donate to his campaign. He can just use his illegal money. Betsy, I don't think he plans on using his money for illegal money for his campaign. I think he's got other purposes for it. I haven't read these in advance, so I don't know what I'm pulling up. It's sad that we as Americans are suffering, and the crime Biden family are living in our beautiful White House. I have to live off $700 a month. My power bill is $234, phone's $87, my insurance $113, home's $113. Renee, the truth is, the Biden economy is designed to make us more dependent upon the government and less independent. And the beneficiaries of that are the same Chinese government that is apparently providing quite a nice lifestyle for Biden and family. And I pray for your situation. It's difficult to live on a very low fixed income, and it is when I was growing up, I went through it, and I understand the difficult situation. So just hang in there. Let's see, what else do we have here? Mike, how are you doing? We're under a terrorist attack amidst the invasion of China and made fentanyl. This administration has changed the narrative. Mike, that's exactly right. The fentanyl invasion, I'm going to switch this thing up. The fentanyl invasion it's murdering Americans. It's murdering Americans. The fact that they're hiding it in virtually a number of different pills now. You don't intentionally take fentanyl. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. And some would say, oh, well, people are taking illegal drugs. Nobody deserves to die from an overdose, and no family deserves to be torn apart by that. So it's a hard problem. But the fact that we've got an open border combined with this seeming see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil about China policy that we have is from the Biden administration makes it all the more dangerous for our future and our security. Here's what we're going to do. We'll give you, when we come back tomorrow, we'll do a follow-up report on this. May do a little bit on the border, may do a hodgepodge tomorrow, but more information will come out. What I do expect to have happen is Biden will say, this is all made up, and some Democrats will say, so what? There's no crime here because taking money is not a crime. Well, kind of is, failing to, if they didn't report it on their income taxes and they didn't report it on their, and they didn't file foreign agent registration forms, then it is a crime. It is a criminal activity. Those things have definitely been used against associates of President Trump during his administration. So, but I expect that they will say that the Biden people will try to excuse it and wave it away and say nothing to see here, and claim that there were no crimes. They didn't prove any crimes. Well, the fact of the matter is, they did kind of prove crimes in terms of the ones I mentioned. But what's more, it's the FBI's job to go and do what influence has been wielded. What we can see are changes in policies that have been changed that directly benefit the Chinese. And we don't know whether that's because Joe Biden's just really bad at policy or if he's got a financial interest in doing it. The truth is, the fact we have to ask that question at all tears at the heart of our country. And it's time for the Democrats and the FBI and the rest to start paying attention to what's in the best interest of this country, of America, and stop playing politics on everything. What the House committee has done is phenomenal. They've done a great job. They're taking a lot of heat on it, but thank goodness they had the courage to get up and talk about this and address it very, very bluntly, directly, and as you'll see in the memorandum, with a whole lot of footnotes. So this isn't one of those things where it's an empty briefcase. This is a well-documented press conference, unlike a lot of things you see out of Washington, D.C. With that, I'm going to bid you adieu. Have a great weekend, or week rather, and we will see you tomorrow, and hopefully with more about this, and hopefully our borders won't have become erased from the map based upon the Biden immigration policy and the results that are going to happen tomorrow when the clock turns midnight tonight. With that, take care.